I've spent most of my life obsessed with building systems, building products, building platforms that would reach across the world. And for a long time, I thought that's what mattered most. Constructing something big enough, useful enough, impactful enough to shape lives. But somewhere along the way, I started to realize something important, something I hadn't thought about in the early days. While I was building all of this on the outside, I wasn't really building much on the inside. I was so focused on launching, scaling, optimizing, that I didn't take the time to reflect. I didn't ask myself the deeper questions. And if I'm honest, there were moments when everything looked perfect from the outside, but inside, I felt lost. I felt disconnected, not from the work, but from myself. It's a strange experience to stand in a room full of applause and still feel unsure of your own worth, to achieve more than you imagined and still ask, am I really okay? That's not something they teach you in school. That's not something success prepares you for. In the early days, I thought having the answers would make me feel safe. I thought being right meant being respected. But life humbled me in ways no business lesson ever could. Because the truth is, the most powerful people aren't the ones who know everything. They're the ones who remain open to learning, especially when they're hurting. There were nights when I sat in front of my screen trying to plan the next big move, thinking about strategy, growth, timelines, but feeling emotionally empty. I didn't know how to say out loud, I don't have it all figured out. That felt like failure. But now I see, that's not failure. That's humanity. You can reach millions of people with your work and still feel like you haven't reached the parts of yourself that need healing. I had to face that truth. Slowly, quietly, privately, because no one else could do that work for me. And if you've ever felt that way, like you're doing well on paper, but something inside you still feels disconnected, then please hear this. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're not alone. This is the part no one talks about enough. The part where you realize success doesn't fix self-worth. The part where you recognize building something meaningful out there starts with building something honest in here, inside your own heart, your own mind, your own identity. I used to define success by charts, timelines, user counts, global reach. We measured growth by the speed of our expansion. The faster we moved, the more progress we believed we were making. And yes, those milestones matter. They shape economies, industries, how people live their lives. But somewhere along the way, the metrics started to blur into noise. I was hitting targets, but I didn't feel fulfilled. I had everything I thought I wanted, and still, I felt incomplete. That's when I realized something that completely changed how I think. Success without alignment is just momentum without direction. You can be running at full speed and still be going in the wrong direction if you haven't stopped to ask yourself, what actually matters to me? Now, I define success differently. It's when someone tells me, because of your platform, I reconnected with someone I lost touch with for years. Or when a young creator from a small town says, I finally felt like my voice mattered. That's when it hits me. This isn't about algorithms. This is about people. Impact is not measured in numbers. It's measured in meaning. That shift in perspective didn't happen overnight. It came through a moment I'll never forget. A few years ago, during a high-pressure product sprint, one of our engineers, brilliant, hard-working, someone I deeply respected, paused mid-meeting. Her hands were shaking. She looked around the room and said, I feel like nothing I do is enough. I build, I fix, I deliver, but I don't feel seen. The room went quiet. No one expected it. She wasn't asking for credit. She was telling the truth. That moment hit me harder than any system crash or launch delay ever could. It taught me something I never learned in any leadership course. People don't just want to build. They want to belong. They want to know they're not just valuable because of what they create, but because of who they are. That conversation stayed with me. It changed how I led, how I listened, how I made space for people. Because if we're only valuing output, we're missing the bigger picture. Innovation doesn't start with systems. It starts with souls. It starts with the human behind the code, behind the desk, behind the smile that hides the exhaustion. After that meeting, I asked myself a hard question. Are we building things that make people feel seen, or are we building things that just get them to scroll? And I knew the answer had to change. That was the day I started redefining what it means to lead, what it means to create, what it means to care. It takes courage to build something the world hasn't seen, but it takes even more courage to build something within yourself when the world is watching. People think bravery looks like confidence, speed, decisiveness, but I've learned that real courage is much quieter. It's the courage to be vulnerable in a meeting, to admit when you're unsure, to say, I need help, even when you're in charge. The world tells us to armor up, to lead without cracks. But what I've learned, painfully and powerfully, is that strength isn't in the mask, it's in the mirror. Strength is when you let the mask fall and say, here I am, as I am, still learning. That kind of honesty isn't weakness, that's leadership. There were times I felt like I had to be the one with all the answers. But slowly I understood I didn't need to be the one with all the answers. I just needed to be the one willing to ask better questions. That shift changed everything, for my team and for me. Because the people around you don't need a flawless figure at the top. They need someone real enough to walk beside them, not above them. And once you start to lead from that place, from presence, not pressure, something shifts. You stop chasing noise and you start listening to meaning. You stop building for scale and you start building for significance. That's when you rediscover your why. There's something I always try to tell young creators, founders, dreamers, especially the ones who feel overlooked. Don't just dream to prove something. Dream because your soul sees something the world needs. Build because your heart won't let you stay silent. Innovate, not just for applause, but for alignment. And remember, your voice matters, even if it shakes, even if it's not the loudest in the room, even if no one claps when you speak. Because the world doesn't need more noise, it needs more truth. I know what it feels like to be the quiet one, to feel like your ideas aren't shiny enough. But here's what I've seen over and over again. It's the quiet ideas, the ones born from depth and clarity, that often make the loudest difference. Not because they demand attention, but because they deserve it. So don't edit your vision to fit what's trending. Don't shrink your dream just to be understood. Dream in your own language. Build in your own voice. The world is already full of copies. What it's starving for is something original, something real. And the most real thing you can give it is you, the full version, not the filtered one.